Most of us will never know what it's like to be standing down there or sitting down there with all the people so close. Is it hard to keep your emotions in check when there's so much going on around you?
Well, I think that throughout my years as a manager, I think that I've not been one to keep emotions in check anyway. But I think that I think it is difficult. I think you live the game. I think this is it. And Joe, for instance, would take his place further up, and that's the way it is. He can see the game, and I think there's a great element to that as well, too, that you do actually get a view of the game that you probably really don't get in the touchline. But I think for touchline managers, will say they're involved. They're totally involved in the game. They're there. You feel as if you can make an impact in the match by bawling out the player nearest to you, who generally ignores you. And but overall, yeah, you talked about the emotions. I think that you feel as if you're really in the game in the touchline.
Joe, for you, do you ever feel like you want to come down, that you want to go down pitch side, that you want to do what Martin says and start roaring at the players?
I have done it, and the players ignored me because they didn't really understand my French accent. I used to do it when I was coaching in France, and I think it is easier to stay less emotionally attached when you're elevated and there's a very thick piece of glass that separates you from the real world of the atmospheric stadium and the game that's in the middle of it. So I try to stay emotionally unattached and intelligently interested, but they overlap very much. And I quite often ask our guys on the sideline, how's this guy travelling? What does it feel like as far as maybe making a substitution? Or because I think that's where Martin has an advantage. You can feel the game a little bit more. You can see up close the players that are starting to fatigue, or one that's starting to just maybe miss a few marks. So there's always a conversation that goes on with the people who are on the ground, even though we're slightly elevated.
Joe, what do you think it takes to make a good international team manager?
I'm still trying to learn myself. I'm watching managers cross codes and different people around the world. I do think that you have to be organised, and that you have to understand the game, and you've got to have a very big work ethic, because I can imagine with Martin, his team are drawn from all sorts of places. We tend to draw just from 4 teams, but we're tracking players from other teams. Obviously, we're really interested in a couple of our players who are playing abroad at the moment, and we continue to track them and their performances and have conversations with them. So there's a work ethic. There's also an understanding of when to give them their opportunity just to prepare themselves. And sometimes the best thing a manager can do, or a coach, is step back and let them get themselves prepared for a game, particularly the mature player who knows how to prepare themselves and does a good job of it.
People who are international managers are sports fans. Martin, is rugby a game that you follow?
I do, believe it or not. I don't tell Joe, excuse me, anything about it, So I don't. And but I always feel as if, I kind of, I nearly want to say I know the game. I certainly do not know rugby, and I sometimes feel that after the scrum, when I watch the boys in the scrum, and the referee penalises them, I don't think they know either. That's a joke, by the way, Joe. And but honestly, coming up, some of the rules in rugby are rather complicated, and just now that I get this opportunity to say to Joe, I believe that the scrums are actually unbelievably penalising, really, a referee's decision one way or the other, and suddenly, you could be in a really great attacking position, and the referee calls a foul on you for the scrum because the other boys are maybe a bit stronger. Not only do they get the kick in there, and then suddenly now they're in attack. So but I do enjoy it. I love the international football matches, and really do, and you can get very, very excited about them because they come in that little group, that little space of time, over a 6 or 7 or 8 week period, and it's really great, and it's there for you. And of course, obviously, the World Cup. It is genuinely very good. I love rugby union, and remarkably, I'm a big rugby league fan as well too. So rugby, yes, I do. I really do like it.
Joe, you surprised?
A little bit, because I've met Martin a few times and we haven't really talked about rugby too much. But I was at that Bosnia
I've never given
match.
him a chance.
I was at that Bosnia match that Martin mentioned earlier, and I was one of the fans, one of the crowd. I brought my son to it, and we had a great time, and getting the win obviously was significant in qualifying for the Euros, and it had been a sort of tough series of games. Some of them spread out a bit, and it was a culmination of a really competitive period that was the perfect culmination, really. I would love getting to most sporting events. I enjoy just about any sport. I'd watch golf if I had 5 spare minutes, and enjoy the change of pace, the contrast that offers, as opposed to the fairly manic rugby or football kind of intensity for that short period, as opposed to having the time to sort of watch someone take their time over a shot, things like that. But unfortunately for my wife, when the TV is on, it's normally on sport, and it tends to dominate in our house.
Martin, do you look at other sports and see what you can learn?
Oh, very much so, yeah. And I think Joe has articulated that particular point. It's interesting, really, for me now that if I was going to, just for instance, talk about other sports, but I'll just take football just at the moment. It has been an interesting experience the last couple of years as an international manager, because I now go to a game. I don't watch the game as such in that sense. I watch the players, a couple of players that I am obviously interested in, the Irish players. And I have come out of a game at times and not exactly sure what the score was in the match. It's really. So I'm watching it from a totally different viewpoint as I might have done as a club manager. But watching other sports, absolutely, I do. I've just mentioned there about rugby, and it's not just because I'm sitting here with Joe. I do. I like the competitive element. I like to listen. It's exactly the same. So absolutely. So all sports, yeah, I would have a serious interest in. And I might stop at darts, to tell you the truth. Having said this, I think Phil Taylor's been phenomenal. Okay, but that's the. Yeah.
When you're standing there and the game is about to get underway, do you feel nervous?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No matter what the game is, because it's funny, people often ask you, how the team, are they ready? And you say, well, yeah, look, we've trained well. But that's about the only indicator you get. You get to know individuals a little bit, and sometimes you sense that it's not quite there, and you maybe not as charged for a game or as dialed in as you need to be. But very often you're nervous because there are so many variables you don't control. So that the players are an unknown quantity, but at least you can estimate that. Whereas the referee making a decision at a scrum or the opposition. Getting the bounce of the ball or creating an opportunity that is difficult to stop. Because there are all those variables and you don't control them, there's a natural nervousness, and I think it's one of the reasons why people love sport. There's a natural nervousness. Even, you can be 14 or 16 to 1 outsiders in Chicago one day, and suddenly you get the result that you've dreamed about. Are you nervous before that game? Especially when you get in the golf cart to go around to the coach's box and they back it up into the fence and you miss the lift. So you're not even up there at the right time. So, when it doesn't start well like that, you think, well, I hope things look after themselves on the pitch, because off the pitch we haven't gone too well. But at the same time, I'm excited. I feel an incredibly privileged position to be in the job that I do, to love the job I do, most elements of it, and to be at occasions that are incredibly special. Walking around Twickenham after winning, a Heineken Cup, or walking out onto the pitch in the Millennium Stadium after being 22-6 down at half time in a Heineken Cup, and watching the lads go up to get their medals. It's a Six Nations where we're sitting in an aftermatch, waiting for the France-England game to finish. It's incredibly tight. and Rory Cockett kicks the ball out, and again watching the players walk out in their suits to accept their Six Nations medals. There are so many exciting times and some that are disappointing that you're always nervous because you want another exciting time to arrive.
Martin, is it different nerves with the player and being a player and being a manager?
I'm not sure about that. I think that there's a genuine nervousness that Joe's mentioned, and I think that that's there. It's always been with me. Yeah, absolutely. I was nervous as a player, and I think perhaps every bit as nervous as a manager. And I think that as a player, you always felt when you're on the field that you had some sort of control of it. You know, you're being picked by the manager, and therefore you can deal with it. And that nervousness, I think, dissipated, if not what disappeared, within 5 minutes of the game. So you're really into it. I think that the nervousness keeps with you for a fairly great deal longer as a manager or as a coach. And I think that's the point. When I remember way back some years ago, one of the you would have loved him, Joe. One of the most charismatic, if not one of the greatest managers ever in football, was Brian Clough that I actually worked with, and remember, I think there was our big captain once said to him, and the gall to ask him, was he nervous before matches? He said, "Hey, son, I've always been nervous. I'm nervous because I'm not sure about you," you know. And and that was his little remark. He was actually sure about the players, but and I think that's the name of it. You are there, and I think there'd be something wrong if you weren't.